Okay. Good morning, everyone. So today we are just going to continue with the discussion of which we have already started in the last class, in the last week, couple of classes, the discussion of class and object, how we can create class and object in C++, and what are the various characteristics while we are going to create class and object, what are the various characteristics that we need to follow. Okay. And how those class and object access can be restricted throughout the different scenarios. Okay, that we are going to discuss today. Let me share my screen first. I hope this screen is visible to everyone, right? Okay. So till now we have already discussed about the basics of classes and objects. Okay. So as all of we know that, just let me give an overall reminder that a class is nothing but a wrapper, or you can say an abstract concept by which we are able to collect the data members and member methods or member functions together into a single body or into a single wrapper. Okay. So there are some important characteristics that each and every object-oriented programming language must follow. The principle, which is called pi principle, which I have already told. Okay, which will actually distinguish the characteristic of an object-oriented programming language and object-based programming language. Okay, because object-based language does not follow pi principle, whereas object-oriented programming language must follow the pi principle. So pi stands for polymorphism, inheritance, and encapsulation. So here, from the definition of the class, you are seeing in this PPT slide that a class can be defined in such a way, which I have already discussed in my last couple of classes, that how we can define a class in a C++ by using the keyword class followed by a class name. Then within the open brace and close brace, we are going to declare the various members of the classes, right? So this section is used for variable declaration, that means data member declarations, right? And this section, after data member declaration, we are going to use to declare the functions or various member methods of the classes. Okay. So data members are nothing but variables of different kinds or different types. Okay, it may be an array of variables as well, and and the member functions are nothing but functions which actually working on that data members which you have declared earlier. Okay, so the entire process, listen very carefully, the entire process by which we are going to combine the concept of this variable declaration and function declaration inside a single wrapper of class, the entire process is called encapsulation. Okay, so what is encapsulation? Encapsulation is a process by which a class wrapper can combine both variable declaration and function declaration, or data type declaration or member methods declaration into a single framework. Okay, so that is a encapsulation, right? So that entire process is called encapsulation. So what are the advantage of using encapsulation? This encapsulation process is not present in case of structured programming language. It is only supported by object-oriented programming language. It may be Python, it may be Java, it may be C++. All are supporting this encapsulation concept, right? So the advantage of encapsulation is that the first and foremost advantage is the security. The first and foremost advantage of using the concept of encapsulation is the security, as it is working like a wrapper. So if anyone outside of this class wants to access these variables, okay, they are restricted. They are going to be restricted. That means if you have defined this member variable or member function as a private apart from the public, if you define it as a private access specifier by using private access specifier, or if you leave it as by default, because I have already told in C++ the by default access specifier is private in nature. Okay, so if you don't write anything, if you don't mention any private keyword as the access specifier here, then by default it will consider as a private. Okay, the other two access specifier you have to define explicitly. Okay, there are total 3 access specifier in C++. One is private, second one is protected, and the third one is public. Okay, by default C++ is private. That's why C++ is one of the most secure object-oriented programming language among all the object-oriented programming language. Okay, so security is depends on the first characteristic of OOPS, that is encapsulation. It actually encapsulate or it actually acts like a wrapper of these variables and functions. So outside users can access have a restricted access on those variables and functions. Okay, if you will make those private, then no outside user will be able to access those data variables or data member functions which you have defined inside a particular class. Only the members, only the objects of that class are able to access those data members, right? Okay, are able to access those data members. Now, uh, let's continue. So this is encapsulation. I think all of you have understand what is encapsulation. Now, apart from encapsulation, there are some other important concepts in every object-oriented programming language follows, like C++. The other important concepts are, which is related to encapsulation. One is abstraction, or more specifically, it is called data abstraction, and another one is your data hiding. Okay, so data abstraction, data hiding. Now, what is data hiding? So data hiding is another concept based on the security provided by the class and object concept. So data hiding means by the help of these access specifiers, okay, you are able to hide the data from the user. Okay, so data hiding encapsulation is very much related to each other. Now, what is data abstraction? What is the difference between data hiding and data abstractions? Okay, data hiding, data abstraction, all these encapsulation, data hiding, data abstraction are generally using in terms of security purposes. Okay, now data abstraction. Suppose, let me give you one example. Suppose you are a customer, you want to purchase a car. Okay, so that's why you are going to visit into a car showroom, right? Try to understand. You are a customer, you want to purchase a car, so you are going to visit a car showroom, right? Now the thing is that there is some attender in the car showroom. Okay, it may be a Maruti car, it may be in any other kind of car showroom. So there must be one attendant who will attend you and whose main responsibility is to sell a car, okay, to the customer. So now he is coming to you, and suppose you are a family person, you are searching for a family car, right? Now, what are the features that attender should discuss with you to attract your view towards a particular car? What are the important features? What do you say? Tell me, what are the important features the customer, the seller, or the manager should discuss with you? Anyone has any idea while you are going to purchase a car?
Sir, mileage.
Yes, very good. The mileage of the car, because you are a family person, service person, so your first requirement should be mileage, right? Means how much, kitna deti hai, right? So how much a car will give you, okay, based on the current petrol and diesel price is very high, so mileage is one of the very important factor. Second thing is that what are the various colors are available in the car? Okay, that is also a very attractive attractive features for the family members, a family person who are hiring a family cars. Then third one is the space, whether the car is spacious or not, whether you can bend your entire legs inside the car or not, how much space the car has, the accommodation of space. Okay. Then second one, then third one, fourth properties that he or she is going to discuss with you is the safety. Okay, what are the safety measurements are there available in the car, whether it has a power window or whether it has any other kind of safety measurement or not. So these are the various basic features that the customer, that the attender or the manager is wants to discuss with you to attract your to attract for that particular car. Okay, to attract your view for the particular car. Now, if suppose a manager, instead of doing all these things, suppose a manager open the bonnet of the car and he is trying to give you an explanation what is the actual mechanism of the car, means how the horsepower will be generated, how the IC engine is working. Suppose he is going to do that. So are you able to purchase the car whether you are interested to purchase the car from that showroom. No, you are getting very irritated, and you are just leave that, you are going to leave that showroom, that I am never going to purchase a car from this showroom. So it will create a bad impact to the customer. But what do you think? Without the horsepower, without the IC engine concept, can the car run on the road? Is it possible? No, because the basic features of the car and the basic mechanism of the car based on those concept of IC engine, horsepower, all these things. But as a family person, you are not a automobile engineer, so obviously you are not interested to listen all these things. Okay, as a general person, you are going to understand, you are going to learn, or you want to know what are the basic features the car have, okay, which you require to run the car for a long time. Okay, as a basic family person, you want those features. So the manager or the good seller or good attender should be that person who are going to only focus on those basic features which are going to attract a customer, and the rest of the features like this horsepower, IC engine, all other features, he is going to be making height. And this concept is called data abstractions. Abstraction is a process, data abstraction is a process by which you are going to show some of the important data or necessary data which are important for the user or for the user of that particular language. Okay, and the rest of the data you can hide, okay, from the outside access of the user. So that is the overall concept of the data abstraction. I think the conception is clear to you, right? So all these three terms, data abstraction, data hiding, encapsulation, are related with each other, and you are able to implement all these three processes by the help of this class concept and the access specifier concept in C++, right? So access specifier are generally three types: public, private, and protected, right? So private and public I have already discussed with you. So private members of class are those members which are only accessible within the by the help of the other member of the same class. That means if you declare this variable private, then other variables of this class is able to access it, or the functions of this class is able to access it, or the object of this class is able to access it. Okay, only the members of this class is able to access it. Okay, if you want to access this private data member outside of this class, okay, by the help of the object of this class, you are not allowed to do that. Okay, why? Because you are going to create the object outside of the particular class, and the private data members are not allowed in anyhow outside of that particular class. So you have to either make this private member as a public, you have to convert this access specifier from private to public, or you can access this variable with the help of the public functions. I'm repeat again, you can either convert this private into public to access it outside the class, from the outside of the class, or you can access these variables, private variables or private data, with the help of the public functions of the same class. Okay, so and what is protected? Protected I am going to define later while I am going to discuss about the friend function. There is a very special kind of functions available in C++, that is friend function, which is unique to C++. In Java, there is no concept of friend function. Okay, so it is unique to C++, and also sometimes the friend functions will create some kind of drawback or disadvantage in C++ as well. Okay, what is the drawback and disadvantage, that I will discuss while I'm discussing the friend function. And at the same time, I'm going to discuss about the protected. Okay, so only one thing you should remember: the protected member is very much similar to a private member, that the protected member accessible from members of their same class. But one thing is extra in case of protected member, that if you are going to define any friend members or friend function outside of the class, that friend function has the authorization or has the capability or power to access the protected data member outside of the class. Only the friend function has the capability. Okay, otherwise the protected access specifier is simply working similar like a private access specifier. And public access specifier is very simple: the data members or the members which you are going to define public, that can be accessible from anywhere from any time by the help of object outside of the class. Okay, it's publicly accessible, right? And by default, the C++ has access specifier called private, which makes C++ a very, very secure language, okay, compared to all the other kind of object-oriented programming language. Okay, look, this I have already told. Only member function can have access to private data member and private functions of that data. Now, how we can define an object? Object I have already told it is a physical concept, or you can say it is an instance of a class. Okay, you can say that the object is working like an instance of a class or an example of a class, and it is a physical concept. While you are declaring an object, it will occupy some memory space in your computer system, right? How we can define an object? First, you have to define the class name, then followed by the object name, which can be anyone. It may be a variable name like this. I have already shown several programs in the future in the previous classes, while I have defined a corresponding class name and then I have defined a corresponding object name of that class. And by the help of that object, you can access data members, especially the public data members from a particular class. Okay, by using the dot operator. Okay. Now, how we can access the class members, that I also shown in my previous previous example, that we can access the data members or class members by using dot operator. We can access the class members by using dot operators. Okay. So if you have this, if you remember this factorial class, then we are able to access we can create the object in such a way. Okay. So is a factorial class, then followed by the object of the factorial class. Then we can access the two member methods of the factorial class, that is get data is first member method and this is display factorial, this is the second member method. Both are public in nature. So we are able to access from outside of that class method from the main method by using object name, then followed by a dot operator or period operator. Okay, we can also able to access the data members which are public in nature by the similar way. Okay. Now, a data member can also be accessed by using object only if data member is declared as public, which I already told. If the data member is declared private, then you cannot access it by using object directly, which I have already told. Either you have to make it public or you can access the data member with the help of public functions of that same class. What I'm trying to say here? So this is a data members. Okay, which I have defined as public. Okay, suppose this is a data member, right? These three data members I have defined. This is a class employee, which has this private data members age, name, and designation of the employees. Okay, whereas age is an integer type, name and designation are the character arrays or string type. Okay, and these two are the public member functions or member methods of this employee class. So together it binds both data members and member functions, and this process is called encapsulation, okay, within a particular class wrapper. Now, look very carefully. We can access this data members age, name. Either you can convert this private to public, or you can, you are able to access by the help of directly by the help of this object name like emp.age, emp.name, emp.desig. You are allowed to access in such a way if you make it public, from private to public. But if you are not going to do that, then how you can access? You can access these data members with the help of the public member functions of this class employee. How? This is the way. You already know that because we have already done this program in the previous classes. So this is a get data. So this is a get data is a public function of this employee class. Okay. Now within that public function, we are able to access the private data members, which I have already told. We can able to access the private data members from the public member function of the same class. Okay, this is the two way of how we can access the private data member. This is very important. In examination, the question is frequently coming. What are the various ways by which we are able to access the private data members from of a class? Okay. Now, defining a member functions. In how many ways in C++ we are able to define a member function? There are actually two ways in C++ by the help of which we are able to discuss our member functions. okay, or able to define a member function. The first way is inside the class definition, and the second way is outside the class definition. The first way inside the class definition, and the second way outside the class definition. Till now, in my beginning classes or previous classes, I have shown the second type of member function definition within a class outside the class definition, okay, by the help of using scope resolution operator. Okay, so let me discuss the first way, inside the class definition. Inside the class definition means where you are going to declare a function in the same spot you are able to define the function itself. So to write a member function inside the class instead of only declaration. So while you are going to declare, instead of declaring only the member function, you are able to define the member function entirely within the class. Look at this example. Suppose there is a class item. It has two data members. Now within this class, we are able to define this member function void put data. Okay, this void should come before put data. Okay, this void. Okay, the void put data void, and this is the body of the member functions. Okay, so this you can define within the class itself. That is a member function definition inside the class. Okay, and the second one is member function definition outside the class, which we have already done couple of times in my previous classes by the help of scope resolution operator. That means we have to give a return type first, then the class name, then scope resolution operator, then the member function name which you have already defined. Then if it has an argument, then argument, otherwise void. Okay, then give the function mode. And this kind of definition you can do it outside the class. So these are the examples. So this is a factorial class which I have already defined. Now within this factorial class, if you remember, in the previous classes, I have shown these two methods I have defined outside the class with the help of scope resolution. But here, to show how we can define the member function inside the class, I have done this. I have defined these two member function get data and display factorial functions inside the class itself. Okay, in such a way. Right, in such a way. And then from the main method, we are going to simply directly call the functions. Okay, if we run this code to find the factorial, it will running correctly. Okay, 5 and the factorial value is 120. Okay, and this 5 is actually accessing the data, one of the data. There is a print is one of the data is there. That's why. So this is the one way of accessing the member function inside the class, and this is the way which I have already shown in the previous classes, that how we can access the member function outside the class with the help of scope resolution operator. Okay, return type void, then the class name, then the scope resolution operator, and then the member method name, and then the body of the method or body of the function, and that should be declared outside this class. Okay, just like this one, just like this one. Look, what new program I have already designed for the BCA people. In last class of the BCA people, I have discussed with them. So this program is I have designed the example which I have already discussed during a definition of the class and object in my first class. What is class and object? I discussed this definition. So class vehicle. Okay, I have already told. So there is a class a vehicle. In that vehicle class, I have defined two data members. One is the type of the vehicle. That means whether it is a two-wheeler, four-wheeler, or you can say it is a family car. Okay, if you consider it is a car, okay, if you consider it is a car, then whether it's a family car or sports car, like this. Wheels, number of wheels. Okay, if it is a truck kind of vehicle, then it may have 10 number of wheels, or 12 number of wheels, even 14 number of wheels. Okay, if it is a family car, then it should be a 4 wheels. Okay, if it is a auto rickshaw, then it has a 3 wheels. Okay, so these are the data I have defined, which I have made public. Okay, for easy access. Now I have defined one function, that is gear changing function. Okay, that function I have designed from my mind. It's a gear changing function that will be applicable for the vehicle. Okay, so here I have, instead of defining the function inside the class, I have defined the function outside the class. Okay, so you can follow any one of these approaches. Either you can define the function inside the class, or you can define the function outside the class. Okay, I generally prefer to follow this approach. Define the function outside the class. Okay, it will actually create a different kind of flavors to how we can access the function outside the class with the help of scope resolution operator. It will also show the use of scope resolution operator. Okay. Now, within this gear changing function, I have just defined one general variable gr, the gear variable. That means some cars may have 3 gears, some cars may have 5 gears, some cars may have sports cars may have more than 5 gears. Okay, so enter the type of the car. This is the second kind of type that we have taken as an input. Okay, from the keyboard, and then we have printed the type, and then how many gears of your particular type car has. So that is also going to take as an input, and then I have printed the number of gears. Okay, so these are the operations that I have done within a gear changing function, right? Now look at this main function very carefully, very carefully. So here I have created more than one object for this vehicle class. I repeat again, in the main function, I am going to create more than one object for the same vehicle class. Okay, why more than one object? Because suppose first object I am going to create suppose for a car of a family car. Second object, suppose I am going to create for a type of car, suppose sports car. Third object I am going to create, suppose for a type of car, suppose truck. Okay, a big car, a truck. So in such a way, you can create multiple number of objects for the same class. If you remember that particular statement, I have told you in the first class that one class may have multiple objects. One class may have multiple objects, but one object must belong to a single class. Okay, one object must belong to a single class. All type of cars must belong to a vehicle class. It cannot be belong to a person class. It cannot be belong to an employee class. It cannot be belong to a fruit class. Okay, it always must belong to a vehicle class. Okay, so here I have created the first object car1. Then I have given this a number of wheels in compile time. These are compile time input. Okay, I have shown both kind of input. First is runtime input. This is a runtime input, and these are compile time input I have given. Okay. Then I have print the number of wheels which I have given as a compile time input, and then I have called the gear changing functions, and then it will execute all this statement for that particular object car1. Okay. Now in a similar way, I have created a second kind of object, that is car2, and I have given all this method similarly. And then I have created a third object that is suitable for the truck kind of car, a big kind of car, and I have created the other data members accordingly. So if we run it, if we run the code, look at the code very carefully. So remember one thing, in memory, you are going to create 3 objects, car1, car2, and for truck. Okay. So these 3 objects are occupy 3 different memory spaces that has been given from the memory heap. These 3 objects, car1, car2, and truck, are occupied 3 different memory spaces that has been given from the heap. Suppose when you are going to write this statement car1.wheels, when you are going to write this statement car1.wheels, can anyone tell me how much byte memory space this car1.wheels occupy? Any one of you?
2.
4.
4 byte.
Yes. Okay. It may be 2 byte, it may be 4 byte. It depends on the architecture, but it should occupy the similar size that the wheels data type have. Yes. Wheels data, which kind of data type wheels have? Integer. So it will occupy integer. So here you have defined int wheels, but the interesting thing is that while you have defined int wheels here, it will not occupy any physical existence into your memory. Why? Because class is an abstract concept. It is a wrapper. It is an abstract concept. It will never ever occupy any physical memory space until you are going to define an object of that particular class and associate the members of that class along with that object, which I have done here. I have created an object of that particular class and I associate that object with the members of the class. Only here it will occupy the memory space, suppose 4 bytes. Okay, in a similar way, while you are calling the member functions by the help of that object, then the member functions and its corresponding data members occupy some memory space okay, in the computer memory system. So if we run this code, so it will look like this. The number of wheels in car 1 is 4, which I have compile time declared. You can take it as a runtime, is your choice. Now enter the type of the car. Suppose I have given the car as family car. Okay, suppose I have given the car as family car. Okay. Now how many gears the family car have? Suppose 4 gears. Family car have. Okay. So this is the number of gears of the car is 4, right? Now second type of car 2. Okay, enter the type of the car. Suppose this is a sports car. Okay, now how many gears are there in case of sports car? Suppose 6 gears. Suppose. So the number of gears of the car 2 is 6. Okay, so it should be car 1. While we are printing, it should be car 1. It should be car 2. Now for the truck, the number of wheels the truck has is 10. Okay, so what is the type of this car? Suppose heavy vehicle. Heavy vehicle. Okay. Now what is the how many gears the heavy vehicle has? Suppose 5 gears. So these are the 3 different kind of objects which are accessible the same class in a 3 different ways. Okay. Is it clear to you? So while we are going to create the object 1, suppose this is object 2, and suppose this is object 3. Okay, this is object 1. Okay, this is suppose car 1. Object 1 is car 1, and suppose this is car 2. Okay, and suppose this is car 3 or truck. The third object we have taken truck. So these 3 different objects are occupying in the memory space. Okay, and suppose when you are going to do this one, car 1 dot wheels. Okay, when you are going to do this one, car 1 dot wheels, then car 2 dot wheels, then truck dot wheels, they actually occupy 3 different memory spaces for 3 different objects. Okay, they are occupying 3 different memory spaces for 3 different objects. That you have to understand here. Okay, 3 different memory spaces for 3 different objects. Okay, so this internally these objects are nothing but a reference to that particular data, reference towards the particular data type. Is working like a pointer. Internally it's working like a pointer reference to that particular data. Okay, so while you are creating different kind of objects of the same class, they are occupying different memory location for the same class for the same number of members of that class. Okay, that is the concept that I have shown here by the help of this program, right? Let's return back to our PPT. So these are the different ways of how we can access member functions, right? I think it is clear to you. So if anyone has any question, you can ask me. Anyone has any question? Is it clear to everyone up to this?
Can you repeat the encapsulation definition?
Encapsulation is very simple. Encapsulation is a process by which you can bind both data members and member functions together into a single framework. That is encapsulation. That is a bookish definition, you can say. It is a process by which you can bind a set of data members and set of member functions together into a single framework. So that is class. Class is nothing but a wrapper or a framework where I have bind both data members and member methods together. That the process is called encapsulation. Okay, the process has been executed by the help of class, but the process by which class is doing that process is called as encapsulation. Okay, look, these are data members and these are member functions bind together. That is called encapsulations. Okay, 3 member functions and 1, 2, 3, 4 data members. Okay, is it clear?
Okay, sir, got it.
It may be any access specifier, it doesn't matter. It can occupy any access specifier, it doesn't matter. Encapsulation is any kind of binding, it's called encapsulation. nesting member function, you can do it by yourself. Okay, that is nothing to say. Now private member functions. Now look how we can access private members functions. So till now I have told you that the data type can be private. So in the similar way, the member function can also be private. The member function can also be private. Now generally we declare data members are in private section, which I have already discussed too, and how we can access data members which I have declared private, that I have already told you. First, you can either convert the private to public, or you can access those private data members with the help of public member function of that particular class. Okay, and member function in public section, that's why we call a member function from the main through object. Okay, that we can do it. But if we declare a member function in private section, suppose we are going to declare a member methods or member function in a private section, then we cannot call directly from the main method because it's private function. Similar rule is applicable for the private member function. The same rule we are applicable for the private data members, right? We cannot directly access those private member functions from the object of that class itself from any other functions, okay, including the main functions. So to call private function, we have to create public function of that class. This line is very important. To call private function, we have to create public function of that class, and we call this private function inside that public functions. Similar concept. Okay. How we can access private data members? We can access private data members with the help of public functions of that member class. In a similar way, how we can access private member functions? By similarly defining the public member function of that class, and then we can call this private function inside that public functions. So then the public function called by object from main method. Look. So here a class value has been defined. I think all of you can understand which function is private here and which function is public here. This is a private function, get data function, and this is a public function, show function. Okay. Now the problem is that if you are going to create object of this value class outside of this class and trying to access this get data function, then it will give you an error. So I have defined the function outside of this class by using scope resolution operator that is accessible, that is actually authorized. You can do that. And then void value. This is a public member function definition. Now we can do that value v, that v dot show return 0. Value v is the object of this value class. V is the object of this value class. Okay, and look, the get data function is actually passing through the function of the public member functions. Okay, so if you read the last line, now how we can access the private function? By the help of the functions which you have defined as a public in the same class, you can access the private function of that class. So which one is the private function of this class? Get data. And which one is the public function of this class? Show. Now how we can access private function? Private function you can define in such a way. Okay, definition can be possible. Even you can define the private function here as well inside the function definition by the help of that concept. You can define it here. But if you want to access by the help of this object outside of this class, if you want to access it, then it will not allow you to access v dot get data directly. Okay, because get data is a private function. It will not allow you. So how you can access the get data? By passing the get data through the public function of this in such a way, and then the object can access the public function, and automatically this function will be called from the public function. That is the concept. Let me show you. We will apply the same concept for our case. Suppose the same program we are taking. Suppose I have defined one function here. Suppose void speed. Okay, that function I have assumed. You can assume any function of your choice. Okay, suppose void speed. So I didn't define any access specifier here. But that means it will automatically consider as a private data function, a private member function. And suppose I did a printout statement here. Suppose cout the speed of the car depends on its mechanism. Okay. just have written some basic line here. Okay. Here, these things I can do. So this is actually a private. You can define it private explicitly, or if you don't define it, by default it will take as a private member function. So these are inside the class definition of the private member function, right? You can either do it inside the class definition, or you can do it outside the class with the help of the scope resolution. So your choice. Here in this class vehicle, which one is a public function? This one is a public function. So if I want to access this private function directly by the help of this object, look, if I want to access it directly by the help of this object, suppose by the help of this struct object, I want to access this private function. Okay, let's run it. Whether it will
So
run
it
or
is
not.
showing error. So it is showing
Yes.
error.
Look, it will show your error. Why? Because I want to forcefully access, directly access or forcefully access by the help of the object of that class of this private function, but it will not allow you to access. Look, here the security kind of mechanism is implicitly applied in C++. This kind of mechanism you didn't found in C programming language. That's why all the object-oriented programming language is much more secure than any structured programming language. Okay, so entire encapsulation concept, data hiding. So in such a way you can hide the data. Suppose you don't want that your user of this program access this function. So you can make it private. Easily you can make it private. So anyone outside of this, anyone apart from you, the programmer, any other user will not be able to access this private data members or private member functions. That is called data hiding concepts, or you can say some kind of data abstraction concept as well. Okay, data hiding means you are hiding the entire data, and data abstraction means you are going to hide some unnecessary details from your necessary details you are going to display, unnecessary details you are going to hide. It means some portion of your characteristic of your knowledge is going to be hidden from the user. Now, if I want to access this private member function, we have to access with the help of public member function. Okay. To Java. 80% concept. Some of the concepts.
So your voice is breaking.
Not there, which are not there, I will explicitly mention that concept. Like frame function. For instance, you are going to learn that Java.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I'm audible. Okay. So 80% concept you are going to learn from this C++, you are going to apply in future.
Again, sir,
languages, especially
your
Java.
voice is lagging.
Learn, try to understand what I'm trying to. Functions with the help of this public function which you have defined within the same class. Okay, so this is a gear changing function. Here I have defined the private functions, or I have called, not defined, actually I am called the private function from this public function. Speed is a private function. It has no return type or argument list, so I didn't use any return type or argument list. So it is actually a calling of that function. We actually did a calling private functions from the public function. That is the main job we are doing here. Okay, so when you are going to call this one, automatically the speed function is also calling for you. Let's check it out. Run this code. So it is enter a type of the car, suppose family car. Okay, how many gears a family car have? 4. Look, the speed function is automatically called. In the speed function, we have just printed this statement, and that will be applicable for all the objects. That will be applicable for all the objects. Let's try for the next object. 6 gear. Look, that is also applicable for this object car too. So I think you can understand. Anyone has any confusion, any problem? These are very, very important concepts. How we can access private data members and private member functions with the help of public member functions of that same class. Is it clear to everyone? Anyone has any confusion?
No, sir.
Very good. Okay. So now how we can define the array within a class? That is nothing special, as you already know it. How we can define an array within a class? It is a compile time declaration we can do as a list of items. This is one of the examples which I have already defined. I have already used character array in our class. Okay, in our previous programs, right? So you can do that. Now memory allocation for an object. So you have to understand how the memory allocation is done in an object, which I have already told. The memory space for objects are allocated when they are declared, not when the class is specified. I have already told, right? When the class is specified, class is an abstract concept. So no memory will be occupied for that abstract declaration. While you are going to specify an object, then only it will occupy the memory space for that particular class. Okay. Just 1 minute. Okay, let's continue. So for member function, when member function are created, it will occupy the memory space only once when they are defining in a class. Okay, I have already told for a particular member function, it will occupy the memory space only once when they are defining in a class. So all objects created for that class can use same member functions. So no separate space is allocated for member function when the objects are created. Okay, so they can access the same member functions. Okay, so only one space is created, because when one object is going to access that member function, the other objects are not going to access the member function. When the second object, look, in this example of vehicle class, I have shown that we are creating 3 different objects, and they are accessing the same member function, gear changing. So while they are accessing this, the car one object is accessing this member function, gear changing. The other object is not accessing that member function. So at a time, the different objects will share the same member function memory space. Okay. So this is very important in case of objects, that they are going to share the same memory space for a particular member function is going to be accessed. For data member, only space for data member is allocated separately for each object when it is created. I have already told. For data members, it is different. Look, I have shown this figure. For this data member, defined memory space is created. For this data member, defined memory space is created. For this data member, different. Why? Because the objects are different. That's why different memory space are created. Okay. So that is the rule is applicable for the data members. For data members, only space for data member is allocated separately for each object when it is created. Okay. Now the separate space allocation for data member is essential, because the data member will hold different data values for different objects. Okay, because in case of member functions, it will not applicable. Why? The member function is actually giving the same values, same body, the same function body is applicable for all the objects. That's why for one object, these member functions are changing. Okay, it will not occupy different memory space for different member functions, because the same member body will be executed for each and every object calling of the member functions. But when in case of data members, it will occupy different memory space, separate memory space. Why? Because each data member may have or may hold different values, data values for different objects. So obviously for the same memory space, it will not possible to accommodate more than one value, different values. Okay, that's why different memory space will be created. Okay, so I think you should understand these things. So this is one example has been given. Suppose these are the three data members have been defined. Suppose in a class, student, registration number, age, and percentage, I think so. and two member functions are defined, get data and show. So if we create suppose three objects, S1, S2, S3, suppose three students are there, so three objects will be created for the student class S1, S2, S3. Then object S1 takes up space for registration number. Object S2 takes up space for registration number, age and part. So each and every object will take different spaces for these three different data members. But while accessing the member functions get data and show, the objects, the common member functions will be accessed by all the objects. So it will take up space only one time when the class is created. Because the member body are similar, the get data member body, the get data functions member body will be similarly applicable for all the three objects. In a similar way, the show data member body will be similarly applicable for all these three objects. That's why they are occupying only one time memory space when you are going to access the same member function for different objects. Is it understandable to everyone? Is it clearly understood by everyone how the memory space will be allocated when different sets of objects are accessing member function and when different sets of objects are accessing data members? Is it clear to everyone? Is it
Yes, sir.
understandable?
Yes, sir.
Anyone has any confusion? You have to understand that thing. Okay, because in the upcoming class, I am going to discuss about this static data member, which has an application of this kind of concepts. Okay, that same member functions will be applicable, same data members for different objects will occupy different memory space. Okay, so today we will stop our lecture here.